Ma, for those of you that might not know. And these were translated into English by one of the European sannyas that was living with Ma, named Atmananda. In true meditation, reality is contacted. Okay, we can all go home. A lot of people have an idea of meditation. In fact, I would say that that's a word that most people think they know what it means. And for the vast majority of people, meditation is like an aspirin. You'll say, how was meditation today? Oh, it was so good. I relaxed. I felt everything smooth out, and I was really able to do a good job at work today because I meditated this morning. So a lot of times in our culture, meditation is approached as something that will help you feel better. And there's nothing wrong with feeling better. Why not? Why not feel more relaxed? That's definitely a gateway drug, feeling more relaxed. But real meditation is being in contact with reality. It's being in reality without any karma. It's having, whether it's a fleeting experience or something that lasts 5 minutes or something that lasts 5 hours or something that you are immersed in all the time, the real meditation is simply being in a state of uncontrived naturalness. What Ma says, being in contact with reality. When we are in contact with reality, capital R, then we have no karma in that moment. Because our sense of separation, which is at the root of all karma, our experience of being separate beings in space with lots of other separate things, separate other people, separate pets, separate objects, that is at the root of all karma, of all patterning that we experience that is binding, that limits our freedom in some way. And so when we have a moment of real meditation, we have stepped out of our karma for a moment, and we've stepped out of time. I always thought, wow, am I going to age more slowly the more I meditate? Not just because I relax, but because, in a sense, you are stepping out of that karma of linear time if you're really fully experiencing reality, capital R. Now, for most of us, even when we are experiencing something more about reality, when we're doing meditation, it's not full on. That's one thing I realized. I had all of these so-called extraordinary experiences and became, over a long, long time and many, many years and hours and days of practice, in contact with reality almost all the time. But I realized that I was just at the shallow end of the pool. You know, that once you open up enough to actually be in presence, so what we say in this tradition is not to be in the present, because the present's just another aspect of linear time. We want to be in presence, immersed in presence, in the living presence of this reality. It's a very different thing. In livingness itself, presence, not the present. And I realized that first stage is, you recognize that presence. You have to actually be able to feel it before you can even have hope of being immersed in it. So some people's meditation, they're very much focused on themselves and their emotions, because we're actually trained in this culture to be almost obsessive compulsively concerned with how we're feeling about something or how we feel in every moment. But that gets kind of boring as you go along. as you go along in practice, all that stuff that you feel gets to be very boring, if not burdensome. In any case, eventually, or maybe right away, because everybody's different, it just depends. I was practicing for many years before I had a confident, incontrovertible recognition of this living presence. So, you know, when I was 14, I think, I'm very bad with ages, but I think I was 14 or 15. No, I must have been 15. I met someone that I really considered to be my first teacher, although she wasn't in any Indian tradition. But she was very much in contact with and aware of the energetic aliveness of things. And she taught me, one of the things she taught me was to look up into a sky and to look in a certain way that I could see flows of energy in the sky. Now, I could see that, but I really didn't make any connection between that and me. It was just something that I was seeing. I wasn't really having an experience of it. It's kind of interesting. Yeah. I was just seeing it, and I would go, ooh, you know, but it didn't really touch me or move me in any way. And it wasn't until much, much later, after doing a lot of formal sadhana, meditation, and japa, and kriya yoga and everything, that I began to recognize the intelligence and aliveness and awareness of that presence beyond just an energetic phenomenon, and to realize that it was me, to realize that I was continuous with it, that there was that what I was made of was that. So it took many, many more years of practice before I realized that, and then many more years of practice before that recognition, that experience wasn't always escaping from me. So, you know, I'd have that experience for a fleeting minute. I was like, wait, what? Like that, you know, and it was very frustrating at first. And then it became a little more easy to get back to that recognition and immersion. And then eventually, you know, I feel I'm in an immersion of that all the time. However, I'm not enlightened. Turns out. At least I don't think so. I hope not. This just can't be it. Yeah. No, I know there is more. I think that the truth is that some people who haven't had teachers like I have, and who don't have a being like Ma kicking their butt all the way down the road, that some people having certain kinds of experiences, including the experiences that I've had, and a certain level of immersion in that, would hang out their shingle and say, I'm enlightened. You know, but what I actually realized was I was only in the shallow end of the pool. What I actually realized was that even having done all that sadhana and having that almost continuous experience of presence, and that there was so much more. There's just the continual deepening and surrender into that. There's still way more for me to surrender into that, until there's much, much, much more identification with wisdom and ability to be directly guided by that wisdom that I know I haven't accomplished yet. So that's kind of, it happens in stages. You know, realization happens in these stages. I realized it's not just like a bolt of lightning. Mm-hmm. There's a unfortunate attachment in the Kashmiri Shaivite tradition to something called sudden enlightenment. And this has to do with part of the tradition where it's talked about that you can get Shaktipat from a guru and experience sudden enlightenment. Or you can be doing any old thing and, you know, Lord Shiva comes and goes boop, and you're suddenly enlightened. And of course, people who wish that would happen to them have magnified that as if it's a huge part of the tradition, or as if that's what the tradition is about. Now, that isn't what the tradition is about. The tradition talks about a number of different upayas. Upayas are skillful means. And a number of different kinds of approaches or skillful means that people in different conditions must use. And so they begin with an upaya. This is in the classical Kashmiri tradition. It begins with a description of an upaya for people who have low capacity and who need to use everyday senses and ritual and have a lot of toys to play with to keep their body, mind, and energy going in the right direction and to not get distracted by karma. So, like doing things like puja, where there's just a whole lot to do, right? And it kind of recalibrates you, but in a very tangible way. Like you pick up a lamp, you pick up some incense, you say some mantras, you arrange everything, you clean your murti. You're doing all of these things, and basically anybody can do that. Okay? And then there's another level where you're able to work with more subtle energy. And then there's a few more levels, right? And this is describing almost all the practitioners that could possibly be. And then at the very end, there's a description of someone who, an upaya, like the final upaya, the final level, of someone who comes into being, who gets born, who's had many, many lifetimes of practice behind them already, who's almost enlightened during this birth when they were born, and who just needs someone to go poop, and they'll have sudden enlightenment and they don't need to do any more practice. But of course, being so lazy, people have latched onto this thing, this description of someone isn't them. They have not been doing lifetimes of practice into this world, almost totally enlightened. Neither did I, and neither did Lord Buddha. I mean, Lord Buddha had to do decades of practice before he became enlightened. This is just silly stuff. So it's very heartening to know that discovering reality during meditation happens slowly and in stages. And you will have many, many little enlightenments along the way. But what it really means to be in contact with reality, it means to be immersed in living presence. It means to have that understanding and experience that living presence is everything and that you are that also. And then to continually deepen your surrender to that, to your own enlightened essence nature in the form of that, in the form of teacher, in the form of whatever deity or whatever form that you are practicing with, right? However you are practicing. So that's that sentence.